Hi, friends. So, you've no doubt clicked on the title. You know we're going to talk about third party readings. So, I just want to put a preamble out there to this. For anyone who is like burning for a fight, I won't engage. If you want to have a discussion about it, I'm happy to. But I'm really just too tired to fight with anyone these days. I try to save it for things that matter. And honestly, fighting about something like this, I don't think matters all that much. I also want to say that while I appreciate it, I don't need to be schooled. I came up through a system of reading where third party readings were forbidden, and I didn't do them for a long time, and I understand all the thoughts and theories about privacy, about spying, and all of that. But what I wanted to do is make a case for why I think third party readings are helpful. The conditions under which I think they're helpful, the kinds of questions that are helpful, and the ones that I think aren't, but that I'll answer anyway. So let's start with that last part first, which is the questions that I don't think are helpful, but that I'll answer anyway. And let's take the kind of classic stereotypical tarot question of is she cheating on me? Which, to be honest, I can't ever remember being asked. I may have in my early days when I was reading for the free tarot network and the free reading network. That may have come up, but I was definitely of the opinion in those days that it was a flat no that I would answer that question or do a reading for someone else and I would explain the ethics behind it. And I wouldn't do it, but I honestly don't remember ever getting that question. Now, here's where I think I get into the most controversial hot water is that if someone were to get a reading from me and ask that question, I would answer it. This is one of those times where I would fight my instinct to not. How do I say this? I would fight. So, my belief is that people are capable of asking the right questions. If they come to me, and I talked about this a little bit in the video around reading for yourself, if someone comes and says, I don't know what to ask, I'm delighted to help them come up with something. But I feel like if they have a question, it's not my job to say that's not what you want to know. It's my job to use the cards to answer the question. What I would say if someone were to get a reading from me and want to ask that question is I probably would start the conversation by saying, hey, look, I will do this for you. I don't have a problem doing it. But let's understand that this is a very purely theoretical reading. I can't guarantee that this is true or not. I believe that a conversation with your partner about this is probably the best way to go. Once you know the answer to the reading, you can't unknow it, and that's going to affect your relationship one way or another. But if you want that, I'll do it. And again, I think that this is one of the few times where I would really, really put that out into the reader, to the client, and say, look, there's a risk with this. That I could tell you that there's some energy around someone cheating, and it may not be the case. Like I could misread that energy. I could see cards that suggest it, and it might suggest that that thing they're cheating with is work. Although again, I feel like I would see that in the cards, right? But I will read if they really want to know. I'll do that question. Oddly, again, I don't get asked it ever, and. I came from the school for a long time of like, if you ask me that, then you already know the answer. But that's, again, it's not true. I mean, we don't know what people are doing. And I think a lot of folks' insecurities are are real. I mean, I don't think that. I know that people's insecurities are real. So, the attitude that I used to take of, if you have to ask me that, then you already know the answer, is both kind of snide and false. But it does make me anxious to answer that question. I'll be fully honest, because it's one of those times where I feel like if I'm wrong, um, you can't go back from that. And it's probably the main reason why I won't read about health, Still, that's like my one boundary, really. And legal issues, because again, I just don't want to get sued. Um, Although, you could get sued for telling someone their partner's cheating on them and having them not do it. Now, let me tell you why I would do it, all right? And here's the reason why I would answer that question. We would likely ask our friends that same question if we were concerned, if we were feeling insecure, if we were feeling anxious. We might go to our friends and say, do you think he's cheating? Do you think she's cheating on me? And our friends are going to look at the evidence in front of them and say no or yes. They're going to say, you know what, he might be, or you know what, she might be, or look, you have X, Y, and Z in front of you. That's your evidence. You know what I mean? A friend would answer that question. And a friend would do it based on a certain amount of observation of signs and signals and patterns, which in essence is what a tarot reading is, except we're looking at different kinds of signs and signals and patterns. I think that I, as a reader, would answer any question a person might ask their friend because it's a similar thing. We're looking at signs, symbols, and patterns. I guess the controversial thing, right, is that I'm not necessarily reading signs, signals, and patterns from another person. I'm reading it from the cards. But if we accept that tarot readings work, and we do, like what would we be doing here if we didn't? Then isn't it fair to say that the signs, signals, and patterns that I'm picking up in a reading are valid too? If they're not, then does reading do anything? Does reading work? It's the same thing as any time I'm reading for anyone on anything. Especially when I'm reading for someone I don't know, which is, it's probably happens about as often as I read for people I do know. That someone asks about their job or about their career or about their trajectory, and I'm picking up on signs, signals, and patterns in a card reading when I have no experience of their life. And if that works, then why can't it work for a question about infidelity, right? So for me, it's the same thing. And to go down the rabbit hole a little bit further, the fact is that if we ask a question and we get an answer, whether it's from a friend or a tarot reading or whatever, again, once we know it, we can't unknow it. And that goes for a job. So if you're applying for a job and you come for a reading and you say, what's the likelihood that I'll get it? And I tell you, it's not very likely. You can't unknow that I said that. Now you're going to go through the process knowing that you're probably not going to get the job. And will that impact your ability to get the job? It could, but it also could make you fight to get it harder. And that might change the outcome, right? Because it's reading what's happening. So, it's such a complicated, convoluted, deep discussion, and I don't know all the answers, except what I do know is that these readings work. These readings show us things that we can't see otherwise. And a job is equally as dependent on other people as a relationship is. So a job is, will you get the job is as much a reading about the person who's the hiring manager as it is about you, because you're impacting the hiring manager. And in essence, the reading is saying, is this person going to be interested in you? Which is the third party reading. Is this person going to want to know or have you work for them? You're asking a question that involves a third party. So that can segue into why I think third-party readings are valuable. So the big one, and I'll get to that in a sec. So the big one of is he cheating, is she cheating? Again, I think it's a time where, because relationships are fragile, this is one of the very few instances I can think of where I will put a preamble and say, look, I will do this reading for you. I do want you to know that, this stuff is unpredictable, and you can't unknow the answer once you know it. And just think long and hard about whether or not this is a reading you want me to do. And then I would do it, and I would say, look, here's what I see. Because again, if a friend came to me and asked me that same question, I would say, you want my answer? Look, here's what I see. You know what I mean? He's never home. He's not interested. Even if he's not cheating on you, are you getting what you want out of the relationship? And things like that can come out too. So, in terms of that kind of question, which again, I never get asked, and maybe I never get asked because people know I'll answer it. I don't know, you know. But I really do put that caveat there, and it is again, it's important to me in that case because relationships are fragile. We're also at a point, you know, where ugh, do you get into this conversation where people's views about relationships are changing, and polyamory is a big part of the dialogue now, and people aren't necessarily looking at relationships in the same way that they did 10, 15, 20 years ago. Certainly not the way we looked at them, you know, when we were kids or when our parents, you know, were kids. So, you know, the way people engage in relationships is changing too. So I think that the way that I, as a reader, engage in relationship readings has to evolve with it. Um, but if I believe that clients are capable of asking the questions that they want to know, then I think that goes for everything. And when it comes to health or legal issues, that's just my own boundary because I, I really feel like it is the risky thing. You know, telling someone to get out of a relationship or, and I wouldn't even say that, showing a relationship that isn't working isn't the same thing as saying, you know what, it looks like you don't have cancer. You know, like a relation, we can recover our relationships, we can work on our relationships, but you can't deal with a misdiagnosis, you know. So I think that that's why I wouldn't do it for health. And when it comes to legal stuff, I just feel like, look, it, it's just too much for me. I just don't want to. Now, here's why I do think third party readings can be helpful and the situations under which I think they're good and they're better and more useful than the is he she cheating question. Um, I think that people have an enormous impact on our daily lives. I think that people's moods, actions, thoughts, deeds, all of those things impact us profoundly as we move through our days and our lives and our weeks, you know, and our hours. They Another person can have a huge impact on what we do and think and feel. And I think it's fair to say that I'm not alone in um, my mood being so affected by the people around me. And we don't always know why people do what they do. And people don't always know why they do what they do. And so I think third party readings are good because they can give us perspective on someone's motivations. They can give us perspective on the reasons why people do what they do. And I think that that can help us give others the benefit of the doubt. I think third party readings, actually, by and large, when they're at their best, can actually help us empathize with someone else in a situation because we're able to momentarily see things from their point of view. And so when a third party reading can explore why somebody is doing what they're doing, I think that in my experience, most of the time, it can make me say, oh, yeah, boy, that person also is a person and has like thoughts and deeds and actions and insecurities and moments and moods too. And oh, right, you know what I mean? Like they're a fully realized three-dimensional person who's the lead in their own play, and I really should probably give them the benefit of the doubt. So I think third-party readings can instill empathy in many cases, and empathy is in short supply these days. So I think that that's one reason why I think they're good. I also think that they're good because they can help us objectify situations in a way that makes it easier to detach from them. So what I mean is, I've got a reading in my shop. This is not a commercial for that, but I developed it because I've like many people in my life and friends end up in relationships with people that we know aren't working and we can't extricate ourselves from them. And sometimes people aren't good for us. You know, sometimes people are toxic. And sometimes we stay connected to them whether romantically or as a friend or an acquaintance or an employer, employee, whatever, because we still care about them, because we're not toxic, because we've been taught to believe that without them we don't have worth, whatever. And I think that in those situations, a third party reading can help us explore the ways in which they are impacting us and the ways in which their toxicity is poisoning us, or the ways in which their ego is entrapping us. And it can be a really shocking and thoughtful moment of revelation for someone to be able to see in a spread the ways that someone's toxicity is coming through in something like a card reading. So that to me is equally helpful. And I think, again, while it doesn't necessarily invoke empathy, what it does do is allow for objectivity and allow for us to explore what's not healthy for us in a relationship, in a way that that's, again, I'm trying to find a word other than objectify, but that objectifies it. It separates us from it, and we can look at it and say, oh, right, I don't just know this, And oftentimes when we're in toxic relationships, we can feel it. And my feelings are there right on the table, And in this reading that I do, which I'm actually really proud of, it explores not only the ways in which a toxic person is exercising their toxicity on you, but the ways in which you're allowing it to happen and why you're allowing it to happen. So those are two really powerful reasons to me why third-party readings are a good thing, because they can help us give someone the benefit of the doubt, help us explore things from their point of view, and instill an empathy in in us for their actions, for their behavior, in a way that will help us approach them and their actions with a little bit more generosity, if that's necessary. And then the flip side of that coin is we can actually objectify their toxicity and see it on the table and recognize the ways in which we're allowing that to damage us and to continue a pattern that's unhealthy. So I think that those are really the principal reasons why I believe third-party readings are a good thing. So now we get into the questions of privacy, and we get into the questions of accuracy. Let's deal with the question of accuracy first, because I think that it's the easier one to answer. Accuracy is always an issue in tarot if we care about being right. And where I think accuracy is the most risky is in that initial question of, is he, she cheating? Are they cheating on me? Because if we're wrong, and we tell a client that they're being cheated on and they're not, we could be setting a risky, a path that could lead to a relationship ending. But when we allow for the preamble I gave earlier of saying, once you know this answer, you can't unknow it, then I say, you are now responsible for this, But also, I think that relationships survive infidelities, like they survive all kinds of things. And again, I'm always trying to choose my words thoughtfully. If a relationship is strong enough and if it's healthy enough, I don't think a tarot reading can damage it that much. I think if a tarot reading is the thing that undoes a relationship, my somewhat, I guess, snarky response is it probably isn't strong enough anyway, and that if not tarot, something else would have come along. So in regards to that question, I think that's where accuracy is most risky. In terms of everything else, I don't think it matters, to be honest. If I'm able or capable of helping you see a relationship and helping you give the person you're with or working for or friends with the benefit of the doubt, if I'm capable or a reading is capable of exploring their motivations in a way that opens up a little bit of empathy, that opens up a little bit of kindness or generosity between the two of you, then even if I'm not pinpointing their motivations and behaviors exactly, I don't think that it matters. I think that we've had a moment where we're able to look at someone, in a third dimension. We're able to look at them more fully. And so even if my motivations or my accuracy of their motivations wasn't right on and they're doing it for other reasons, I've still allowed for you to, or we've made space to empathize. We've made space to explore things in more dimensions than our own limited perspective. And then likewise, in the situation with the more toxic reading or the unhealthy relationships that we know we need to get out of, we know we need to get out of them anyway. And so even if my reading about the reasons why their toxicity is erupting in the way it is, or it's affecting you the way it is, it still gives you perspective, and it helps you separate yourself from it enough to see how much better you are without that toxicity. And so even if I'm not 100% accurate, I don't think it matters. And again, we have to go back to my initial point earlier on, is that if tarot works, then it works, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. And so when it comes to accuracy, I think we just have to trust that it works. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were quoting someone. Oh, I really wish I'd looked. The podcast is that, I can tell you. And I know it's Red Rose Robinson and Friends, but it's the Yoink podcast. Tarot Visions podcast. And they were quoting someone who said, this shit just works. And I think when it comes to accuracy, whether it's a third party reading or whatever, it either works or it doesn't. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel about accuracy. When it comes to privacy, I really don't know the answer to that. And I've been very principled in my early days and said, it's spying, it's rude, it's invasive. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that anymore, and I can't tell you why, other than that I think I have a right to know why people are behaving toward me the way they are. And if they can't explain it to me, then I'm going to find out another way. In the absence of facts, we make them up, and that's inevitable anyway. We're making judgments, and we're peering into people's behaviors all the time. It's a survival instinct. It's how we know whether or not someone's a threat. So we're constantly prying into people's lives. We're constantly Facebook stalking someone we think is hot, or spying on our ex's current. We do those things. So is this any different? I would wager that it's not really, and maybe it's a healthier way to try to get perspective. So is it an invasive thing? I don't think it's any more invasive than scrolling through someone's social media posts. If you want to know why someone's doing what they're doing, I think the best way to have that conversation is to say, why are you doing this to me? But people don't always know. We don't always know why we act the way we do. And I think that I have a right to explore why people do what they do to me, and to explore the effect they're having me and why they're having that effect on me. I just believe that. And again, what I believe, what I say here, all comes from me, my experience, my evolution. Who knows? In 10 years, I may have a different opinion. But where I am right now is that I believe that I have a right to explore those things, especially if you're not going to tell me, because your actions impact my life, And so I think it's fair that if you ain't going to talk, I'm going to figure it out on my own. And what better way to do it with a fairly objective tool that's not necessarily going to suffer from my own confirmation bias, So, and I think in terms of confirmation bias, that's like lighting something up in my head too. It's probably less risky for me to do a third-party reading for you than for you to do it yourself, because I'm probably not going to suffer from confirmation bias. And what I mean by that is I don't know you all that well, or even if we're buddies, I don't know you well enough to be able to use the cards to confirm what you want them to say. But when we do read for ourselves, one of the risks is Am I using these cards to show confirmation bias? Am I confirming what I think, or am I looking at what the cards are really saying? Which is another reason why I think third-party readings are helpful, because I'm less likely to suffer from confirmation bias than you are if I'm reading for a third party in your life, you know? So again, I think there's a certain layer of objectivity there that's beneficial. So, what I don't want to do is say to the world that doing third party readings is right and anyone who doesn't do them is wrong. That's not the case. If you are not comfortable doing them, don't. Because I think that if you're uncomfortable with something, you're A, probably not going to do it well, and B, you're crossing your own boundaries, and we have to set boundaries in life. That's, again, I can't really speak to why I won't do legal readings in any way other than that. I don't want to get sued. That's not a good reason, because I guess I could get sued for doing any kind of reading. But I don't do them because it makes me uncomfortable. I don't do health readings because it makes me uncomfortable. Those are my boundaries. I'll read about anything else. And so you have to know your boundaries. You have to be comfortable with them. All I want to do here is if you're curious, if you're on the edge, if you want a different perspective, these are my thoughts on why third-party readings can be a good thing and why I do them. And again, it all comes down to something that's really important to me, which is that I do believe people are capable of asking the questions they want to ask. And it's not my job, it's not my role to tell them they don't want to know that. So, those are my thoughts on this. I know that, I started with kind of a bitchy preamble about why I don't want to argue. And it's just, like, again, because I get it. I know why people don't do them. I did not do them for most of my tarot career. It's probably only in the last 2 or 3 years where I've said, you know what? This is a thing I actually believe in. This is a thing I will actually do. And it took a while for me to get there. And I'm a different reader than I was before that, because the kinds of things I would read about are different. I would talk to someone about their question. I would say, maybe this isn't what you want to ask. And I've changed. It doesn't mean I'm a better or worse reader now. It's just I'm a different reader. And here's why I am. And that's your journey too. And so the reason I don't want to get into a disagreement or a fight in the comments here is that if you disagree with me, I fully understand why. Believe me, I do. I just do not have the energy to fight with anybody. These are my thoughts. They come from my experience. I recognize why this is controversial to a lot of people. I want to open the door to say, hey, maybe there's another way to think about this. And maybe there are benefits to doing this that haven't been considered. And those are the benefits, or these are the benefits from my perspective. So, as always, I hope this was interesting. If you disagree with me, totally understand. If you want to fight with me, I'm probably going to delete the comment because I just do not feel like getting into it. I've been getting into it all week on Facebook about racial stuff and like shitty world news, and that feels like something worth fighting about, and this doesn't really. So be good, take care, and we'll talk soon.